Okay, so this week's video, or one of them, I'm gonna do two. The first one is about fueling your body for endurance sports and how to make sure that you don't kind of fall into that trap where you do so much activity, whether it's cycling or running or whatever your endurance sport or preference is, that you end up kind of negating all the point of exercise. And it's kind of fitting. I didn't even notice I have my Ironman shirt on because I did that last year. And I've done a ton of half marathons and triathlons, and I know the cycle that people fall into. So just a precursor before we get into this discussion is if you're thinking about doing a marathon, half marathon, triathlon, I don't know, like cycling, fondo, something like that, they're all super awesome. They're really great to challenge yourself and see what you're capable of. I would not choose that as a weight loss strategy. Lots of people think that if they train for a half marathon, they'll probably lose a bunch of weight along the way. Or maybe even if you don't think that outright, it's kind of like in a back thought in the back of your head. And I've seen it so many times with clients and friends and just people I know that inevitably people end up gaining weight training for a half marathon. And the reason is because they fall into the mindset of the trap of thinking I just ran for 2 hours. I can eat whatever I want. Or I just cycled for 4 hours. Yeah, I'm gonna go out to happy hour with my friends and have chicken wings and mozzarella sticks and all these drinks, and I'm gonna nachos, and it doesn't matter, I just cycled for 4 hours. So I just warn you to not use endurance sports as a weight loss strategy because it's probably not gonna work in the long term. I'll guarantee it's not gonna work in the long term. And then linked to that, how to fuel yourself properly, because if you've done any of these endurance events, particularly when the mileage gets up quite high, you end up feeling like you can't satisfy your stomach. You're so hungry sometimes all the time. And so how do you deal with that? So a couple things. One, and again, as always, this is what works for me. So what works for me doesn't necessarily work for every single person, but I'm gonna give you what I would suggest is before an endurance event, I always make sure that I eat something. I can't go out on an empty stomach. So basically for me is I want to keep myself fueled from the start and throughout the event or the sport or the run, the cycle, whatever. Because if I let myself get too hungry, then I'm chasing it throughout the whole time that I'm out exercising and afterwards too. And it's kind of like thirst. If you're a runner, you've ever heard and I don't know the science behind this, but if you're thinking I'm thirsty, it's already too late. You gotta manage your hydration before you get to the point oh my God, I'm so thirsty. So hunger, I believe, is the same way. I used to believe that I couldn't eat before I ran, something I just believed in my head. And then I tried it and I can eat before I run. I can have a banana. And if it's a long endurance run, it's over an hour, 2 hours, I would have an English muffin with peanut butter and banana. But what's key for me is to reduce sugar in that meal. So that means choosing natural peanut butter where the ingredients is only peanuts. If you look on the label and there's other things there, including sugar or just oils and things that you don't recognize, that means that there's a lot of extra stuff added to your peanut butter that you don't need. So that stuff gives me cramps when I run, when I cycle, when I swim. If I have totally natural ingredients, I don't get the cramps. So for me, fueling properly beforehand is super key, and then throughout the sport too. So depending on the sport, I would do gels or the little gummies or energy bars or whatever. And if you read the packaging on those gels, you should be having them 40 minutes into the exercise and then every 30 to 40 minutes. So if I'm doing when I did the Ironman, I actually was very specific and really timed it, because I didn't want my body to get to the point of cramping, of just maxing out, of I wanted to make sure I could finish cross the finish line well, healthy and happy and standing and all those things. So I really took my nutrition seriously and make sure I fueled at proper intervals throughout the training. I didn't wait until the end. I didn't wait 3 hours in before I started fueling myself. I kept on top of it throughout the whole race. And so I think that's the same with training too. There is, maybe you don't want to have gels or those gummies, and they're it is highly processed stuff and you want to keep it more natural. So there is other foods that you can choose for that. to fuel yourself in between, depending on how long of an endurance run or sport you're going on. One thing I really like is dates sliced open and then stuffed with peanut butter, and I'll put those a couple in like saran wrap in my pocket or in the kit on my bike. I really love that for fuel because you get protein from the peanut butter and then carbs, which when you are doing an endurance event, you do need like quick digestible carbs so that your body can, access that energy in the form of sugar. And which is why lots of those gels and stuff, they are sugary, but dates have natural sugar. So, and it just doesn't like coat your teeth the same way some of those gels do. And then what I also used to do at some point, I didn't really want to have like Gatorade, or now there's better electrolyte options, but back in the day when I was running a lot more, they didn't have the big variety that there is now. So sometimes I would just put pretzels in my pocket and have that with water too, just because I needed something salty at the same time. And so really the main things I think with endurance sport nutrition, one is fuel properly before. Make sure you're maintaining energy and nutrition throughout the race, throughout the practice, throughout the ride, throughout the run. And then afterwards too, don't use it as an excuse to be like, it's the mindset trick. Don't fall into the like, well, I did all this exercise, I can do this. Even if it's like, oh, I ran 4K today, I can eat whatever. That is... It's a tricky spot to be in, right? It's a tricky mindset spot to be in. And you're kind of like trading food for exercise. So just be cautious of that. And then if you're still feeling super, super hungry after a big long run, listen to your body. Eat. Your body definitely needs more carbs when you're doing endurance events. Your body needs that energy. And just as I've said in some of my other videos, protein always. So protein, then fiber through veggies, and some carbs on the side. And just kind of keep cycling through that. If I'm hungry again, it's like, okay, let's have some more protein. Let's bulk up some more veggies. Fiber is always filling. And also carbs too. And water. And there is some days after a long run, a long ride where you're just starving. And the thing is, if you're listening to your body and you're like, my body needs food, my stomach is hungry, and you eat, that's fine. It's the trap is when you just are like, well, I did 4 hours, I need all this exercise. I did an hour and a half run, I not exercise, I need all this food. I put in this amount of time, so I must need this. It's really like cue in, listen to your body, and get those hunger cues, and then choose the appropriate healthy options that are going to make you feel good, as opposed to just going down the happy hour bandwagon. I hope that's helpful. There's obviously a lot more that can be said on endurance nutrition, but that's kind of an overview just on how I approach it. But again, don't use it as a weight loss tool, because there's way more effective ways that you can lose weight without having to put in hours and hours and hours in endurance exercise. So only do that stuff if you enjoy it, and if you want to like challenge yourself and see what you're capable of.